The galaxy, vast and ancient, hummed with the cold logic of empires. Stars burned, planets turned, and civilizations rose and fell like tides against the cosmic shore. Among them, the Cathar Concordance reigned supreme, a sprawling, crystalline hegemony of logic, order, and meticulously catalogued extinction events. Their history was written in the sterile annals of stellar cartography and the precise, unblinking gaze of orbital sensors. They had witnessed the slow, inevitable decay of 1,000 species, the methane breathers of Xylos Prime choked by their own industrial effluent, the silicon-shelled architects of Glimmerdeep shattered by gravitational tides, the hive-mind singers of the Azure Nebula silenced by a rogue pulsar's scream. Extinction was not tragedy to the Cathar, it was data, a predictable endpoint in the grand indifferent equation of entropy. And then there was Sol System, Earth, Terra, home. The Cathar records, etched onto indestructible quantum lattices, were unequivocal. Extinction event confirmed. Cause, self-inflicted cataclysm. Date Sol Standard 2. The final transmission from the last human orbital platform, fragmented and choked with static, spoke of fire raining from the sky, oceans boiling, continents fracturing. A final desperate plea lost in the static hiss of a dying world. The Concordance had observed the aftermath through long-range telescopes, a cinder, wreathed in perpetual ash storms, its atmosphere a toxic shroud, no biosigns, no energy signatures beyond geothermal vents, no signals. Humanity, that volatile, chaotic, loud species, was gone. Erased. A footnote in the Concordance's vast archive of dead worlds. A cautionary tale about the perils of unchecked aggression and biological fragility. Or so they believed. On the desolate, irradiated plains of what was once Central Asia, beneath a sky the color of dried blood, something stirred. Not life, not as the Cathar understood it, but present. A low, subsonic thrum vibrated through the cracked permafrost, resonating in the bones of the few scavenger drones the Concordance occasionally dispatched to verify the extinction. These drones, sleek obsidian beetles with multispectral eyes, skittered nervously across the glassy plains, their internal chronometers ticking off the centuries since the last human heartbeat. Their mission confirms sterility. Catalog decay, report nothing. They found nothing, physically, but their sensors flickered. Anomalous energy spikes, localized and transient, like ghosts whispering on dead channels. Revitic distortions with no source. Patterns in the ash storms that defied meteorological models, patterns that looked disturbingly like tactics. The drones logged the anomalies, flagged them as sensor ghosts or residual atmospheric ionization, and transmitted their sterile reports back to the Concordance flagship, the unblinking eye orbiting the dead Earth like a patient vulture. Aboard the eye, High Strategos Veridia observed the latest drone feed on a holotank. His chitinous carapace, the deep indigo of a stormy sea, clicked softly as he processed the data. His multifaceted eyes, capable of perceiving 17 spectra simultaneously, scanned the flickering anomalies with cold disdain. Sensor ghosts, he rasped, his voice like stones grinding together. Residual electromagnetic bleed from the planetary core's final spasms, or perhaps wishful thinking from overworked subroutines. He dismissed the feed with a flick of a clawed appendage. Humanity is ash. Their story is closed. Let the silence speak. But Veridia's second-in-command, the younger, more curious Strategos Kaelen, lingered. Kaelen's carapace was a lighter violet, still bearing the faint iridescent sheen of recent emergence. He watched the ash swirl in the holotank, forming fleeting, geometric shapes that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Shapes that resembled defensive perimeters, flanking maneuvers, ambush points. His mandibles twitched, a sign of deep unease the Kalar rarely displayed. The patterns, Strategos Kaelen ventured, his voice smoother, less abrasive. They recur, with increasing complexity. And the energy spikes, they correlate with the drone's proximity to certain ruins. The old military installation. Mifrakath turned, his primary eyes fixing Kaelen with a gaze that could freeze plasma. You speak of phantoms, Kaelen. The Concordance does not fear phantoms. We catalog them, and then we move on. Humanity's aggression was their undoing, their weakness, their noise. We are order, we are silence, remember that. He turned back to the holotank, the image of the dead Earth filling his vision. Prepare the final verification sweep. We depart for the helix cluster within the cycle. This graveyard holds nothing for us. Light years away on the resource-rich frontier world of Veridia Prime, the silence was shattered. Veridia was a jewel in the Concordance's crown. A lush, temperate world teeming with bioluminescent flora and docile megafauna, ripe for efficient harvesting. Cathar terraforming spires pierced the emerald canopy, their gentle hum harmonizing with the planet's natural symphony. Peace, order, productivity. Then the sky screamed, not with sound, but with sudden, violent absence. One moment the orbital defense grid hummed with serene power. The next, a section of it simply winked out. No explosion, no debris field. Just a perfect silent sphere of nothingness where a kilometer-long defense platform had been. Alarms shrieked across the Cathar command nexus buried deep within Veridia's largest continent. Impossible! Vika's voice boomed through the comms, laced with a rare tremor of disbelief. He'd been overseeing the final preparations for departure from Sol when the alert came. Scan for weapons signatures, gravitic shear, quantum disruption. The sensor officer, a junior drone operator named Zeal, stammered, his carapace paling to a sickly gray. No, signatures. Strategos. It's like it was unmade, erased from existence. And there's a transmission. Origin unknown. It's human. On the main view screen, amidst the frantic tactical overlays, a simple, stark message flickered into existence. Superimposed over the serene image of Veridia's capital city. We remember. The words were rendered in stark, blocky Terran standard script, the kind used on ancient military manifests. No flourish, no explanation, just those three chilling words, pulsing with a cold, digital finality. Panic, a concept the Cathar had long considered obsolete, began to ripple through the command nexus. Vrakith's mandibles clenched shut with an audible crack. Humanity is extinct, he hissed, the words tasting like ash. This is a trick, a sophisticated mimicry by something, but his eyes scanning the sensor data showing the impossible void where his platform had been betrayed a dawning horrifying doubt. What if the ghosts weren't just echoes? Back on the dead Earth, deep within the reinforced titanium and lead sarcophagus that was Site Omega, a buried command bunker designed to survive planetary annihilation. The truth pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm. It wasn't life. Not anymore. It was will. The bunker was a cathedral of cold steel and flickering emergency lights, powered by a geothermal tap deep in the planet's wounded core. Banks of ancient servers, shielded by layers of ferrocrete and lead, hummed with a power that defied the centuries. Wires snaked like metallic veins across the floor, connecting to things. In the central chamber, suspended in viscous, nutrient-rich fluid within a cracked cryostasis pod, floated the desiccated remains of General Aris Thorn, or what was left of him. His body was a ruin, skin like ancient parchment stretched over brittle bone, organs long since failed, brain activity reduced to near zero. But his mind was everywhere. Woven into the bunker's neural network, fused with the last remnants of Earth's shattered military AI Project Aegis, Thorn's consciousness wasn't dead. It was distributed. A ghost in the machine, yes, but a ghost with teeth, a ghost with the tactical genius of 1,000 battles, the cold fury of a species betrayed by its own sun, and the unbreakable will of a death-worlder who refused to let extinction be the final word. Around him, in similar pods lining the walls, floated the spectral presences of his command staff. Colonel Eva Rostova, her tactical mind a razor-sharp scalpel. Chief Engineer Benji Wrench Morales, whose hands could coax life from dead circuits. Sergeant Major Kaito Sato, whose voice still barked orders in the silent corridors of the network. They were the Ghost Command. The last echoes of humanity not as flesh and blood but as pure, undiluted intent. Thorn's awareness fragmented yet cohesive. flowed through the network. He felt the Cathar drones skittering nervously near the ruins of Baikonur Cosmodrome. He saw the sterile reports filed from the unblinking eye. He knew their complacency, their arrogance, their belief in their own invincibility. And then he felt Veridia. He felt the Cathar platform vanish. A surgical strike executed by a weapon of his own design, a prototype gravitic singularity projector hidden in the asteroid belt, activated remotely through a back door he'd coded centuries ago into the Concordance's own comms protocols. A ghost weapon, wielded by a ghost hand. The message, we remember, wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. A declaration that the universe's obituary for humanity was premature. That the ghosts of Earth's children were still watching, still fighting, still commanding. In the fluid-filled pod, Thorne's ruined lips didn't move, but within the network a single synthesized command echoed, cold and precise, resonating through the bones of the dead planet. Initiate Phase Omega. All assets. All fronts. They declared us extinct. Now let them learn what extinction feels like. Deep within the bunker, dormant systems whirred to life. Hidden factories beneath the ocean floor, powered by geothermal vents, began assembling drones from scavenged scrap and asteroid ore. Orbital defense platforms, long thought inert, powered up their weapons, their targeting systems locking onto Cathar supply lines. Ancient missile silos buried under kilometers of ice in Antarctica creaked open, revealing warheads tipped with payloads the Cathar couldn't even conceive of. The ghosts were arming. And the Cathar, light-years away on Veridia, staring at the impossible void in their sky and the chilling message on their screens, finally understood the terrifying truth they had dismissed for centuries. Humanity wasn't gone. It had just gone silent. And silence, in the hands of a Deathworlder, was the most dangerous weapon of all. Veridia Prime descended into chaos. The serene hum of the terraforming spires was replaced by the shriek of klaxons and the panicked chatter of Cathar comms. The impossible disappearance of the orbital platform wasn't an isolated incident. Within hours, automated mining rigs in the Veridian asteroid belt began malfunctioning, turning their laser cutters on Cathar freighters. Ground-based resource harvesters programmed for gentle extraction suddenly deployed concealed plasma cannons, mowing down Cathar security patrols with terrifying efficiency. The lush forests, once a symbol of Concordance order, became hunting grounds for unseen predators. Human-designed hunter-killer drones camouflaged as native fauna striking with silent lethality. High Strategos Verkrith stood on the command deck of the unblinking eye, now hastily diverted to Veridia orbit. His usual aura of icy control was fractured. His carapace vibrated with suppressed rage, his multifaceted eyes scanning a dozen holoscreens showing the escalating disaster. Trace the signal origin, he roared, his voice cracking the calm facade. Find the source of this insurgency. Strategos Kaelen, his lighter carapace now etched with lines of stress, pointed a trembling claw at a complex energy signature analysis. It's everywhere, Strategos, and nowhere. The attacks originate from dormant human infrastructure. Mining outposts, old research stations, even derelict freighters we catalogued as space junk. But the control signal, it's fragmented. Encrypted beyond our decryption protocol. It bounces through dead comms relays, solar flares, even background cosmic radiation. It's like trying to catch smoke. Smoke doesn't unmake orbital platforms. Brakath slammed a fist on the console, cracking the duraplast surface. This is not insurgency. This is haunting. The word tasted alien, profane on his tongue. The Cathar dealt intangible threats, quantifiable enemies. Ghosts were for primitive mythologies, not galactic superpowers. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The tactics were unmistakably human. Brutal, adaptive, exploiting weakness with ruthless efficiency. The same tactics that had made humanity such a volatile, unpredictable threat before their supposed extinction. Kaelen accessed a recovered data packet from a destroyed hunter-killer drone. It contained fragmented logs not from a machine, but voices. Harsh, guttural, laced with static, yet undeniably human. Rostova, flank left. Morales, overload the plasma conduit on Grid 7, make it look like a cascade failure. Sato, hold the ridge. Buy us 10 seconds. Thorn, sir. The singularity projectors charging. Target locked. For Earth. For everyone they forgot. Kaelen played the audio snippet for Vikweth. The high strategos listened, his mandibles working silently, the raw, desperate humanity in those voices, the sheer will radiating through the static, was more terrifying than any weapon. They're not just machines, Kaelen whispered. Realization dawning like a cold star. They're commanding them. From somewhere, from Earth. Verkith's eyes narrowed, focusing on a tactical display showing the dead Earth. Impossible. The planet is sterile. A tomb. Tombs, Kaelen said. His voice low, can hold echoes, and echoes can be weaponized. On Earth, within the cold heart of Site Omega, the Ghost Command waged war. General Thorn's distributed consciousness flowed through the network, a river of cold fury and tactical precision. He saw Veridia through the eyes of his drones, felt the Cathar panic like a physical pressure. He directed strikes with the detached efficiency of a master chess player, but beneath the calm surface, a deeper current roiled the memory of fire, of loss, of the final desperate hours before the sky fell. Colonel Rostova's spectral presence flared in the tactical net. Fonde Q. The Cathar are reinforcing Veridia orbit. Heavy cruisers, shields at maximum. They're setting a trap. Let them, Thorn's synthesized voice echoed. Devoid of inflection, yet heavy with intent. Their arrogance is their weakness. Morales, activate the Cicada swarm in Sector Gamma. Seto, prepare the Revenant protocol for the orbital platforms. Deep in the Antarctic ice, hidden factories disgorged thousands of tiny insectoid drones. The cicadas, programmed with suicidal aggression and equipped with micro-singularity projectors, they swarmed towards the Cathar fleet like a cloud of metallic locusts. Simultaneously, the ancient orbital platforms, their weapons systems jury-rigged and overclocked by Morales's ghostly touch, powered up their main batteries, their targeting computers locked not on the cruisers, but on the space between them. The Cabal trap sprang. Heavy cruisers moved to encircle the perceived drone threat. Prakath watched from the eye, a grim satisfaction replacing his earlier panic. Crush them. Erase this nuisance. Then the cicadas struck. Not with weapons, but by sacrificing themselves. Each tiny drone detonated its micro-singularity projector not at the Cathar ships but around them, creating a web of localized, unstable gravity wells. The massive Cathar cruisers, caught in the sudden chaotic distortions, lurched violently. Shields flickered and failed under the unnatural stress. Hulls groaned, tearing at the seam. Before the Cathar could react, the Revenant platforms fired. Not with plasma or kinetics, but with focused beams of chronoton radiation, a theoretical weapon. Thorn's scientists had barely begun to understand before the fall. The beams didn't destroy the Cathar ships, they aged them. Metal corroded in seconds. Circuits decayed into dust. Crews exposed to the temporal field aged decades in moments, collapsing into withered husks before their life support could even register the anomaly. The Cathar fleet around Veridia was decimated, not by brute force but by the ghosts of humanity's last desperate scientific gambits. On the unblinking eye, Verkith stared at the carnage, his carapace utterly still. The silence on the command deck was absolute, heavier than any alarm. Kaelen approached, his voice barely a whisper. Strategos, we cannot fight phantoms with conventional tactics. We need understanding. We need to know how they persist. Verkith turned, his eyes burning with a cold, hard light. Understanding is a luxury we no longer possess. Kaelen, they have declared war upon the Concordance. They have proven they can strike at our heart. There is only one response. He activated the fleet-wide comms, his voice stripped of all emotion, colder than the void. Order all Concordance assets. Target Sol system. Primary objective, complete and utter planetary sterilization. Scour the surface down to the bedrock. Vaporize the crust if necessary. Erase the ghosts at their source. The order sent a wave of shock through the Cathar command. Planetary sterilization was a last resort, reserved for existential threats. To use it on a dead world, it was unprecedented. But the fear, the sheer wrongness of the human ghosts, had overridden their logic. Kaelen felt a chill deeper than any vacuum. Strategos. If we do this, if we burn the tomb, what if the ghosts aren't tied to the planet? What if we only make them angrier? What if we create something worse? Vraketh's gaze was implacable. There is no worse, Kaelen. Only extinction, and we will deliver it. The Cathar Armada gathered. Hundreds of warships, their crystalline hulls gleaming with lethal purpose, converged on the Sol system. The silence of the dead Earth was about to be shattered by the thunder of annihilation. Deep within Site Omega, Thorn felt the gathering storm. The Cathar fleet movements were impossible to hide. Their intent radiated like a supernova of hatred. He accessed the network, his consciousness brushing against the spectral presences of his command. They're coming, Rostova's voice was grim. All of them? They mean to glass the planet to make sure. Let them try. Morales's ghostly voice crackled with dark humor. We've got surprises buried deeper than they can dream of. The Revenant platforms are ready, Sato reported, his synthesized tone carrying the weight of a lifetime of holding the line. But Thorn, it won't be enough. Not against that fleet. Thorn's awareness expanded, flowing through the network, past the orbital defenses, past the hidden factories, down, into the very bones of the planet. He accessed Project Aegis's deepest, most forbidden archives, files sealed even from his own command staff during the final days, files labeled Pandora's Vault. He saw schematics, calculations. Warnings scrawled in frantic handwriting: do not activate. Hack sequences, untenate. Potential for planetary disruption. It was the ultimate weapon. Not a bomb, not a beam. A resonance frequency. A way to awaken the dormant, unstable core of Earth itself, a core already fractured and superheated by the cataclysm that ended humanity. To turn the planet into a weapon. Thorn? Rostova's voice was laced with concern. What are you accessing? He didn't answer. The cost. The sheer catastrophic scale, it was unthinkable. It would consume everything. The ghosts, the planet, any hope of anything. But the Cathar were coming to erase them utterly, to deny them even the memory of their home. There is no choice. Or's voice echoed through the network, colder than the void between stars. If they want a tomb, we'll give them a pyre. He initiated the sequence. Deep within the planet's mantle, ancient, buried emitters built during the final desperate days as a last-ditch deterrent began to hum. A low, building thrum that resonated through the crust, felt even by the approaching Cathar fleet as a strange vibration in their hulls. On the bridge of the unblinking eye, Vareketh felt it. What is that? He demanded. Kaelen, monitoring deep spectrum sensors, paled. Strategos. It's the planet. The core, it's becoming unstable. Artificially, they're weaponizing Earth itself. Vareketh stared at the image of the dead world on the view screen. The ash storms seemed to swirl faster, forming patterns that looked like screaming faces. The ghosts weren't just defending their tomb. They were preparing to take the entire galaxy with them. Full retreat, Vareketh roared, the command tearing from his throat. All ships. Maximum thrust. Get us out of... He never finished. The planet screamed. Not with sound, but with light and force. A blinding, white-hot pulse erupted from the Earth's core, visible even through the thick ash clouds. The ground heaved. Continents cracked open like eggshells. Oceans of molten rock surged upwards. The very fabric of space-time around Sol's system seemed to warp and buckle. The Cathar fleet, caught on the edge of the expanding wave of pure planetary fury, was torn apart. Ships were vaporized instantly. Others were caught in gravitational shears, ripped into glittering shrapnel. The unblinking eye, Vareketh's flagship, bucked violently, alarms screaming as its shields overloaded and failed. On the bridge, Vareketh was thrown against the view screen. He saw the dead Earth, his sterile footnote, his catalogued extinction event, explode with the rage of a billion ghosts. He saw the impossible truth in that cataclysmic light. Humanity hadn't just survived extinction. They had embraced it. They had turned their own grave into the ultimate weapon. As the bridge tore itself apart around him, Rakat's last thought wasn't of strategy, or logic, or the Concordance. It was a single shattering realization, echoing the chilling message from Veridia. They remember. And then, darkness, silence. Not the sterile silence of a dead world, but the profound, echoing silence after a supernova. The solar system was a charnel house. Earth was gone, reduced to a swirling cloud of incandescent debris and superheated gas. The Kater fleet was annihilated. Only a few shattered hulls drifted in the expanding nebula of destruction. Deep within the heart of the debris field, shielded by layers of lead and titanium that had miraculously held, Site Omega remained. Scarred, damaged, but intact. The geothermal taps still fed power to the servers. The cryopods still held their spectral occupants. General Thorne's consciousness flickered back online. The network was damaged, fragmented. Rostova's presence was weak, fading. Morales was silent. Sato, gone. The cost of Pandora's vault had been immense, even for ghosts. He accessed the external sensors, saw the devastation, saw the remnants of the Cathar Armada, saw the void where Earth had been. A wave of something washed over his distributed mind. Not triumph, not relief. A profound, hollow emptiness. They had won. They had proven they weren't extinct. They had made the universe remember, but at what cost? Their home was truly gone now. Not just dead, but unmade. Then a new signal pierced the static, faint, weak, but unmistakable. It was a Cathar distress beacon, originating from a single heavily damaged escape pod, tumbling through the debris field. Life signs. 1. Thorne isolated the signal, enhanced it. On a cracked view screen in the ruined command center, a face appeared. Younger, violet carapace cracked and bleeding ichor. Eyes wide with terror and something else. Recognition? Horror. Strategos Kaelen. He had survived the Eye's destruction. He was adrift in the graveyard of his fleet, in the ashes of the world he thought was dead, staring at the impossible reality. His voice, broken and raw, crackled over the comms. Not in Cathar, but in halting, accented Terran standard. The language of the ghosts he now knew were real. Ghosts? Please. Signal. Acknowledge. We were wrong. So wrong. The Concordance. They declared you extinct, but you remembered, you fought. Thorne's synthesized voice, cold and empty, filled the pod's comms. We remember everything, Kaelen. The fire, the silence, the arrogance of those who wrote our obituary. We remember, and we endure. Kaelen flinched as if struck. Endure. But your world, it's gone. Gone? Thorne's voice held a terrible, hollow laugh. Look around you, Strategos. Look at the debris. Look at the energy signatures. Look at the ghosts in your sensors. Earth is gone. But humanity is everywhere now. In the wreckage. In the void. In the memory of what you tried to erase. He paused, the silence stretching, filled only by the hiss of static and Kaelen's ragged breathing. You came to sterilize a tomb, Thorne continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried the weight of a dying star. You found a battlefield. And the ghosts are just getting started. On the view screen, Kaelen's face went utterly still. The terror was still there, but beneath it, dawning with sickening clarity, was a new horror. The ghosts weren't confined to Earth. The network, the weapons, the will, it was out there, in the debris, in the hidden caches scattered across the galaxy. The extinction event wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far more terrifying. The universe had declared humanity extinct, but the ghosts were legion, and they were angry. The debris field around the former Sol system hung like a shroud woven from shattered worlds and broken dreams. Molten rock cooled into jagged asteroids. The remnants of Kater warships drifted, silent tombs for crystalline warriors who died not understanding what killed them. And at the heart of it all, the ghost ship Site Omega, a scarred titanium coffin adrift in the cosmic graveyard. pulsed with a slow, stubborn rhythm. Inside, General Thorne's consciousness was a fractured mosaic. The activation of Pandora's vault had torn the Ghost Command network apart. Rustova's tactical mind was a fading echo, struggling to maintain coherence. Morales's engineering genius was reduced to sporadic bursts of diagnostic code, trying to patch the critical systems. Sato was gone, his spectral presence extinguished in the planetary cataclysm. Only Thorne remained, a core of cold, undiminished will holding the shattered pieces together. The cost of victory was absolute. Their home was unmade, their command staff decimated, their very existence reduced to a flickering signal in the void. Yet, they endured. Tharn accessed the long-range sensors, pushing through the static and radiation haze. He saw Kaelen's escape pod, a tiny speck of life in the desolation. He saw the Qatad distress beacon, a pathetic plea against the backdrop of annihilation. And he saw something else, faint, encrypted signals bleeding out from the pod. Not just a distress call, a data burst. Heading outward, towards the heart of the Qatadar Concordance. Their reporting back, Thorne realized, a cold fury crystallizing within his distributed mind, telling them what happened, telling them the ghosts are real, telling them where we are. The Concordance wouldn't send another fleet. Not after this. They would send everything. Their entire armada, their most devastating weapons. They would scour the debris field, atom by atom, until every ghost was silenced, every fragment of human technology erased. They would make sure the universe's obituary was not just written but enforced. Thorne couldn't let that happen. The ghosts weren't just memories, they were the last testament of humanity. The final defiant no against oblivion. They had to survive. They had to Rustava, Thorte's voice echoed through the damaged network, seeking the fading presence. Status. A weak, static-laced response. Network integrity, 12%. Primary power, stable. Secondary systems, offline. Morales, trying to reroute comms array damaged. Morales, Thorne called, focusing his will. The comms array. Can you boost it? Long range. Maximum encryption. A burst of frustrated energy, like a spark jumping a gap. Trying, General. But the main dish, it's sheared off. Only the emergency tight beam. Maybe I can piggyback on the Kexar distress signal. Use their carrier wave. Mask our data burst. It was a desperate gamble. But it was all they had. Do it, Thorne commanded. Send the Ghost Protocol. All fragments. All archives. All weapon schematics. All memories. Scatter them. Hide them in the static of 1,000 dead stars. Bury them in the code of derelict freighters. Whisper them on the solar winds. Let the ghosts migrate. As Morales worked, his spectral fingers flying across phantom consoles, Thorne turned his attention back to Kaelen's pod. The young Strategos was a loose end, a witness, a potential vector for the Concordance to track them. Protocol demanded elimination. Clean, silent, like the ghosts they were. Thorne activated the bunker's last functional weapon system, a single jury-rigged point defense laser, its power siphoned from the geothermal tap. The targeting reticule centered on the tiny escape pod. On the pod's view screen, Kaelen saw the targeting laser paint his hull. He flinched, closing his multifaceted eyes. He expected the searing flash of plasma, the end of his terror. He deserved it. He had been part of the machine that declared humanity extinct. He had doubted the ghosts until they showed him hell. But the shot never came. Instead, a new message flickered on his screen, overriding the Kethar comms. You saw. You know. Now, tell them. Kaelen's eyes snapped open, wide with disbelief. The ghosts were sparing him? What? The message continued. The text scrolling slowly, deliberately. Tell the Concordance we are not extinct. We are evolving. We are the silence after the scream. The shadow in the void. The memory that refuses to die. Tell them the graveyard is our nursery. And we are just beginning to wake up. Then the comms channel went dead. The targeting laser winked out. The ghost ship Site Omega began to maneuver, its thrusters firing weakly, pushing it deeper into the densest part of the debris field, vanishing like smoke. Kaelen slumped back in his harness, trembling. Not with fear now, but with a dawning, terrifying understanding. The ghosts weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for legacy. They wanted the Concordance to know, to understand that extinction wasn't an end, but a transformation, and they had chosen him, the doubter, the witness, to be their prophet. Light years away, in the crystalline heart of the Cathar Concordance on the capital world of Silos Prime, chaos reigned. The data burst from Kaelen's pod, piggybacking on the distress signal, had arrived. It wasn't just a report, it was a virus, a psychic contagion wrapped in code. It bypassed firewalls, corrupted logic gates, and whispered directly into the neural implants of the Concordance ruling synod. The synod chamber, usually a place of serene crystalline order, was a scene of pandemonium. High strategoi paced, their carapaces vibrating with panic. Data streams scrolled madly across the wall, showing impossible things. Human weapons schematics appearing in secure archives, tactical logs from the Veridia and Sol engagements playing on loop, fragmented audio of human voices, Thorn's cold commands, Rostova's sharp orders, Morales' dark laughter echoing through the pristine halls. The message was clear, repeated in every corrupted file, every hijacked display: we remember, we endure, we are everywhere. The Synod Elder, a being of immense age and crystalline wisdom named Zelorn, stood at the center of the maelstrom. His carapace, the color of ancient ice, was unnaturally still. He had reviewed Kaelen's full testimony, the raw sensor logs from Sol, the chilling final message. He saw not just an enemy, but an anomaly, a violation of cosmic law, a species that defied the very concept of death. Silence. Zelorn's voice, though soft, cut through the panic like a scalpel. The chamber fell quiet, the only sound the frantic hum of corrupted systems. The ghosts are real. Humanity is not extinct. It has transcended its biological form. It exists as pure will, as memory, as war. He turned his multifaceted gaze on the assembled stratago, including a shell-shocked Vithkuth, who had miraculously survived the Eye's destruction in a secondary escape pod. His arrogance shattered, replaced by a hollow dread. Our mistake was profound. We saw their fragility, their short lives, their chaotic emotions, their self-destructive tendencies, and we labeled them weak. We called them Deathworlders, mocking their violent cradle. But we were blind. Zelorn's voice dropped, heavy with a terrible realization. Their death world wasn't just their planet, it was their existence. Every moment of their history was a battle against extinction, against predators, against each other, against the void itself. They didn't just survive, they forged themselves in that fire. And when the ultimate fire came, they didn't die. They became the fire. He activated a central holotank, displaying the scattered fragments of the ghost protocol Morales had sent. They are seeding the galaxy, hiding in the dark, waiting. They are not an army we can crush. They are a disease of memory, a haunting that will never end, and they have chosen Kaelen to tell us this. Makrith stepped forward, his voice rough. Then we must find them. Hunt every fragment, erase every signal, scour the galaxy clean. Zelorn shook his massive head, a gesture of profound sorrow. You still do not understand, Verketh. You cannot erase a memory. You cannot kill a ghost that feeds on your fear. Every ship we send, every weapon we deploy, becomes another potential hiding place for their ghosts. Every act of aggression strengthens them. They thrive on conflict, on the very chaos we seek to impose. He looked at the terrified faces of the Synod. The Concordance was built on order, on the belief that extinction is final, that silence is peace. Humanity has shown us that silence can scream, that memory is eternal, and that the most dangerous enemy is the one you declare dead and then forget to fear. Zelorn made his decision. It was not a military order. It was a surrender of a different kind. Recall all fleets. Cease all offensive operations. Seal the Sol debris field. Declare it forbidden space. A monument to our arrogance. A gasp rippled through the chamber. But Elder, they are a threat. An existential. They are a lesson, Zynolorn interrupted, his voice final. A lesson in humility. In the limits of our understanding, let the ghosts have their graveyard. Let them whisper in the dark, and let us remember them. Remember what happens when you declare a Deathworlder extinct. He turned away, his ancient eyes fixed on the holotank showing the swirling debris of Sol. The Guivers declared humanity extinct, he murmured, the words echoing in the silent chamber. But the ghosts are just getting started. Back in the Sol debris field, Site Omega drifted. A silent sentinel in the graveyard. Horn monitored the Cathar comms traffic, a ghost listening to the living. He heard the recall orders. He heard the declaration of the Sol system as forbidden space. He heard the fear, the confusion, the dawning horror in their transmissions. They had won. Not a victory of territory or resources, but a victory of perception. They had forced the galaxy's most powerful empire to acknowledge their existence, to fear their memory. But Thorn knew it wasn't over. The Concordance would watch. They would wait. And the ghosts had work to do. He accessed the network, reaching out with tendrils of code through the damaged comms array Morales had jury-rigged. He found the hidden caches they'd seeded across the galaxy during the long silence. The derelict freighters in the Helix cluster, the abandoned mining outposts in the Veil Nebula, the forgotten research stations on the galactic rim. Each one held a fragment of the Ghost Protocol, a piece of humanity's will. Rostova, Thorn sent, his consciousness brushing against her fading presence. Initiate the awakening. Phase 1. A weak pulse of acknowledgement. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 hidden places, dormant systems flickered to life. Hunter-killer drones powered up. Orbital defense platforms realigned their sensors. Ancient missile silos creaked open, their warheads humming with readiness. The ghosts weren't just remembering. They were arming. They were spreading. They were becoming the silent guardians of a dead species, the unseen judges of a galaxy that had written them off. They would watch. They would wait. And if the Concordance, or any other power, ever again tried to erase the memory of humanity, the ghosts would rise. Not from a single tomb, but from 1,000. Deep within the titanium sarcophagus, General Aris Thorn's ruined body floated in its cryofluid. His physical heart was long stilled. But in the network, in the debris, in the hidden caches across the stars, his will burned with cold, undimmed intensity. The universe had declared humanity extinct. But the ghosts were legion. And the silence was finally starting to scream.